Hello, everybody, and welcome to No Trailers Allowed. I know you are used to me saying the Super Jersh Show. If you follow me on socials or in the Discord or on Patreon, you would know that I am dividing up the Super Jersh Show into specific podcasts. So if you want to hear my opinions on music, you can check out the Music to My Ear music podcast. And if you want to continue to enjoy my opinions on movies, you can stick around to this podcast feed, as it is now primarily my movies and streaming show news and review podcast, where I actually personally do not watch trailers beforehand. So there will be few exceptions since I made that decision within the last year or two, and sometimes I can't control it if I go see a movie and I accidentally see a trailer. But by and large, the point of this show is for me to share my movie and streaming show opinions and perspectives with knowing that I did not see anything beforehand. I did not watch the trailers beforehand. If you like this podcast and you want to find more, you can visit my website, superjersh.com. I'm also on Spotify and iTunes. I also do have a new dedicated YouTube channel that I'll put a link to in the show notes description. Please subscribe and help that grow. I'm completely separating the movie podcast to be its own thing, its own YouTube, its own RSS feed, just so that people can decide, what they want to watch and what they want to listen to when they find me in my corner of the internet. So today I'm going to be talking about Spider-Man No Way Home and The Matrix Resurrections. Full spoilers. The movies have both been out a few weeks now, so this is right now your full spoiler warning for both movies. And joining me with my conversation today are my two good friends, Wolf and Gunyer. Say hello, Wolf.
Hello.
And say hello, Gunyer.
Hello, Gunyer.
So, as I said, full spoiler warning. What was that?
I was just making fun of his dad joke.
Oh, god damn it. So yeah, full spoiler warning, starting with Spider-Man, and we're gonna talk about the Matrix eventually too. But first, I explained my position that I do not watch trailers. So for Spider-Man No Way Home, I did not watch any trailers for this movie. I did not see any video footage of this movie. I saw like two still images. I heard uh I heard Doc Ock say hello Peter, like when I covered my eyes one time, and I had it spoiled for me on Twitter like a year and a half ago that they were trying to bring multiple villains from past Spider-Man movies. So if I had not known that, just imagine how even crazier like my reaction would have been. But I state all of that information because I want to know, Wolf, what did you watch the movie trailers? Like how familiar were you with what this movie was going to be before you watched it?
So I have the unfortunate problem of everybody knowing that I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. So even if I don't watch any trailers, I have at least 30 people come up to me and ask me, "Oh my God, did you hear Andrew Garfield? Did you hear Tobey
No
Maguire?"
shit.
Yeah, so no matter what I do with like a Marvel movie, somebody always is like, "Oh my God, can you believe that happened in the trailer?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah, so
But
Wolf is like the biggest Spider-Man fan that I know. You've been obsessed with Spider-Man your whole life, and I'll
oh
let
yeah.
you explain it. But
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a giant, embarrassing collection of Spider-Man stuff that is borderline a problem. But but yeah, so like I watched the teaser trailer, the announcement trailer.
okay.
Like with all Marvel movies, I always watch the teaser, but
Mm-hmm.
I never watch anything further because they already have my money. So
Right.
what's the point of trying to ruin anything for me?
Okay. And then before we get into opinions, Gunyer, what was your situation? Did you watch all the trailers like normal, or did you try to avoid it when the internet blew up with the possibility of a multiverse situation, or like what did you know before you saw it?
I had watched like the first like teaser trailer, and I kind of tried to avoid it after that because I didn't want it to get spoiled.
Okay.
Kind of following the the Jersh method of watching movies.
Yeah, I'm pretty hard in
Um,
the paint when it comes to that, but I
yeah,
understand not
you're
everybody else
hardcore.
can.
But even after seeing that first like teaser trailer, I was like, oh my gosh, this is at the very end, it's like, hello, Peter. I was like, no way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then, there's just those little I thought the trailer was done well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Um
yeah.
and so it didn't for me I don't think it like really spoiled anything for me. Um going as far as what the story was going to be. So I didn't really know what to expect other than like these old villains were going to be back.
Mm.
um and they messed up the spell, because but I didn't know how Peter messed up the spell until I watched the movie. He's being a
Right.
17-year-old boy and messed everything up. But you know it was good. I still enjoyed the movie very much.
For me, I didn't know any of that except for I knew that like old villains were going to be involved, and that Twitter had spoiled that they were trying to bring back like a lot of different old cast members. Tobey Maguire was rumored, Andrew Garfield was rumored, Molina, Defoe, like everybody was rumored when I like got off Twitter because I was like, I'm not having anything else spoiled for me anymore. Um, so I didn't know what had been confirmed and what hadn't until obviously I heard "Hello, Peter" at some point. And I was like, well, they got him. Um, so I didn't know that it was about a spell. I didn't know Doctor Strange was in this movie. I didn't know anything that was going to happen because I didn't even watch the teaser. I'm going to start with Wolf because I've got a pretty good idea what you're going to say. But what did you think of this movie?
It was so bad. Like it was just no. Honestly, like out of all the Marvel movies that have come out, it's on the same level of Endgame for me.
Hmm.
Because like Endgame is amalgamation of all these different characters throughout the MCU. And me being a giant Spider-Man fan, this was literally just the Spider-Man universe all
Right.
together. So
Right.
for me personally, this was way bigger than Endgame because I love those characters, but this is like my all-time favorite character. I know these characters. I grew up, paying attention to these characters. To see them all there just blew my mind.
Right.
It was amazing. Great movie.
Okay, and Gunyer, I think you had said you were positive on it as well.
Oh yeah, I loved it. And same thing as Wolf, growing up watching the old Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and to see Tobey Maguire back, I was like, oh my gosh. And then like the little nod where he's like, my back hurts, and like
Yes.
remembering
Mhm,
like when he fell and like
mhm.
busted his back. It was hilarious. I thought it was so well done. I loved it.
So, I guess I mean honestly like I loved it as well. I was like really pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it. Um, I thought that
We were too.
yeah. Um, because I don't know, like I mean, I never watched Homecoming. I thought Far From Home was fine. Um, and I'm like I said, I'm a hit or miss. I'm a fair weather MCU watcher. Like I watched like the Avengers movies and some of the individual like I watched Iron Man 1 and 2. I've never seen any of the Thor movies. Um I've never yeah, there's a lot of them that I haven't seen, but I did see Infinity War and Endgame and Civil War. I guess I saw the Captain America ones, which those are pretty good. But I
Mhm.
wasn't. I'm not like I'm not into it, and I still had a really, really, really good time. So I can't imagine like how fulfilling it must have been as somebody who is really into it. Like it might have been. I mean, that must have been incredible.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's top tier.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah, definitely Super Bowl-esque.
Hmm.
So I want to talk. I mean, there's a lot of things you could talk about in this movie. It's a 2.5 hour movie. It has kind of an insane plot that like starts with Peter trying to get into college, and then he has Doctor Strange try to use a magic spell. Which again, suspension of disbelief. Are we really gonna jump to brainwash a galaxy to help a high schooler? Probably not. But you understand that it's comic books, and like that kind of for at least for me personally, they get away with more for me because
Oh yeah.
I don't need it to be necessarily the most believable thing in the world. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
um
and that right there is a lot of theories based around the fact that that wasn't the real Doctor Strange
really.
because
Okay.
everybody questioned. why would he be so apt to just, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's, screw the entire universe. Let's mess with the timeline that he was the protector of. But like in the
Right.
movie it talks about that he was part of the blip. So he was gone for 5 years. So there's theories that he kind of went a little loopy because he came back and he's no longer the Sorcerer Supreme.
Right.
He came back and everything has changed. But uh, I don't know if you guys watched the What If series
I
No.
haven't watched
on
anything on
Disney.
Disney. I haven't watched Star Wars. I haven't watched the none of the MCU series. No.
So real quick, real easy, is Loki introduced variants,
Okay.
which is like a separation. So say Spider-Man exists on our timeline, and then there's branches of where every decision he makes changes who he becomes.
Okay.
And every one of those beings exists somewhere in a timeline. Those are called
Oh.
variants.
Okay.
So uh there's talks about Doctor Strange may have been a variant from a different timeline.
Man.
And then there was talks about in that What If series, there's actually a dark Doctor Strange to where he pretty much gives up everything to save his girlfriend or wife.
Right. And
And he
the what if series, to my knowledge, or for people that might not know, it is like a it's an animated series where they tell standalone stories that are completely disconnected from like lore requirements. Like they can make good guys be bad guys. They can kill people that normally live forever. They can bring people back from the dead. It's kind of just like a playground to do whatever they want with these kind of characters. Is that right?
it's very much like what if this happened instead of this happened? How would the story progress?
Okay.
Kind of thing. Like what if Captain America was bad?
Right.
What would happen? What if Captain America never got his powers? What would happen? But neither here nor there. That's one of the big theories, is that that was either a variant or a different Doctor Strange from a different multiverse, which
Well,
is why he was so apt to be like, yeah, fuck it, let's change everything.
Well, and this is dealing with a multiverse, and the next Doctor Strange movie is called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is also it's being directed by Sam Raimi, which is hilarious. Um,
Full circle.
yeah, when you think about all the tie-ins, but I did not stay for the after credits trailer because I don't watch trailers, but that would be a really clever kind of not even a retcon, just a future explanation for questions now if that's actually the plan. If they actually planned that, then it kind of makes it even better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, because you know how Marvel is it's like every decision they make, they're prepared for an answer. It could be 5 years from now. It could
Well,
be 6 movies from now.
and
You know?
that's the gift and the curse of the MCU. That's why I don't really like it. Is because they've basically taken a television concept and put it on the big screen. They've made a basically a big screen television series that is never going to end. That's never going to be like a start, middle, and end story. It's literally just going to go on forever. And for me,
Yeah.
like just for my personal taste, I like stories that like lead to a climax, that lead to a resolution, that lead to change, that have a finality. But I also see obviously see the allure and the desire to have a story like not end because you're having a good time.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
with that,
Money is very good time.
Yeah,
yeah. But with that, like the enjoyment that we all got from the Spider-Man movie all came because of that.
right.
You
Yeah,
know what I mean? That
yeah. They
moment when you're
built up to
seeing
it.
all the,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mhm.
what, 15 years, in the making to
Dude,
build
yeah.
up to this moment that just even somebody like you who isn't a big fan was like, oh my God.
Well, honestly, just like from a logistical perspective, from an analytical perspective, I was just fascinated at the business deals that had to be struck to
Oh
make
yeah.
all this happen, to get all these actors to put their, how much does your ego cost for you to come here and be Spider-Man next to other Spider-Man, literally kind
Mhm.
of make fun of yourself, right? Like
Mhm.
they both did. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were both self-deprecating. You know what I
Oh yeah.
mean? Like making fun of
Want to
their
fight aliens?
yes, but it's so you love them for it. You love them for
Oh
it
yeah.
because that's what you wanted to fucking see. You know.
Oh yeah.
So let's start with the performances. Like, Gunnar, I want to go to you. What did you think of the performances overall of, obviously the three Spider-Mans, the side characters, John Favreau, Aunt May, and the villains?
Well, honestly, when I saw the villains and all the other Spider-Mans, it really feels like it kind of never, like it never stopped. Like I
Mm-hmm.
felt like they just kind of picked up right where they left off, and I was just enjoying the ride. I thought everybody did a fantastic job. Um, Maybe at the beginning, I kind of thought maybe Aunt May was a little. I don't know. I thought that kind of them two dating was a little, or they broke up. Like, I don't want to say childish, but I was like, I don't know if it does anything for me.
It was a
But
cartoon in a comic book movie. It was like laughable.
yeah, yeah.
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 Um, but then like later on, when she passed, I was like shedding a tear because I was like,
That was
oh
a
my
great scene.
gosh. Yeah, and then the same line, and it's like, wow, like even though there's different universes, like they all still have like the same like responsibility, like they're all superheroes, but they still have to like adhere to like kind of those same rules. And I,
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. And then just seeing the old guys again, like Alfred Molina, it's like dude never aged. I mean, they
Well, I mean, they de-aged him, but I also agree
well,
that yeah, his performance he
just his
sounds the
performance.
same. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like exactly. It's like he never left. And then also Willem Dafoe, awesome. I
Hmm.
thought he did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Even the other guys, they're a little bit lesser. I thought Electro was kind of, is that his name, Electro?
Yeah, Jamie
Hmm.
Foxx's Electro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe he was a little too cool, but I mean,
Well,
I still dug it.
he stopped being dorky Electro and he started being
Yeah,
badass motherfucking Jamie Foxx. Is what he did. Is
yeah,
what
yeah,
happened.
yeah. And I was just kind of like, that was the only part where I was like, I don't remember that, but whatever, that's cool.
I
Um,
barely remember jack shit from those Amazing Spider-Man movies. Like, I don't think I ever watched. I never
yeah,
finished the first one, and the second one, I just remembered. I remembered the Gwen Stacy thing, which is what everybody remembers, which was really beautifully referenced in this movie. We can talk about that later,
mhm.
but yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was good stuff.
Um, do you feel like I'll go to Wolf? Do you feel like the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield? Did it feel like other Spider-Men to you, or did it feel like the same Spider-Man from three different actors? Like, do you actually feel like they were like back into their role, or were they just like, I don't know, were they like caricatures of what they were? Because um, you're not the. I guess you're not. I don't know who. I don't want to speak for you, but what did you think of Tobey Maguire in this movie, and what have you thought of him in his original trilogy?
So the first two Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about the third one. That never happened. I've wiped that one
What?
from my memory.
You don't like emo Tobey Maguire?
Did you
Oh
know there's a
God,
whole
it's so bad.
YouTube channel dedicated
Yeah.
to photoshopping him into random scenes called Bully
It's
Maguire?
it's just
Yes.
so awful.
It's
That's the best.
hilarious.
But it's funny because I think they were all good at certain things.
Okay.
Like, so I liked Tobey Maguire was always really good with being awkward Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he was just Peter Parker, he's super awkward. You know what I mean? Like you could tell that he just wasn't popular. Like I don't know if he really Tobey Maguire actually wasn't popular in school, but he nailed that, you know.
That loser's jawing from real life, little punk. Give me your fucking
Yeah.
milk money.
But
No, I'm just
then
kidding.
then
He's a
you take
method
Andrew,
actor.
Yeah.
yeah. Then you take Andrew Garfield, and I don't know if you guys remember the movies very well. His little quips when he was fighting and stuff like
He was
that
the most
was
smartass. I remember that.
was pulled straight from the comic book. He used to make. He always said that he used humor to diffuse situations. Like it's the way he copes. That's
Mm.
why he always did that, like out of nervousness. And so he killed that. And I actually think like the way he moved in the Amazing Spider-Man was more accurate. Like if you watch any of the clips of him swinging and stuff like that,
Yeah.
it's super accurate. It's like they pulled it out of a comic book.
Hmm.
But then Tom Holland, he does a great job at being the scientist. He's incredibly intelligent. but he's still a kid who is just lusting after this girl. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
so every one of them did something different that was really good. But I don't think any of them actually like 100% nailed the character
sure.
because there are certain things to each step, which is why it's so exciting to see the end of this new movie is because you actually start to see him, he's an adult now.
Yeah.
He's got his own apartment, and he's in that classic suit,
Well, isn't
which
wasn't the
which is
point
homemade.
wasn't the point of these movies, like, correct me if I'm wrong because I never saw Homecoming, but they introduced Spider-Man in Civil War and he's
Hmm.
already Spider-Man.
Hmm.
And then through Homecoming, I did see the trailer a long time ago. He gets the assistance of Tony Stark, which is where he gets all this kind of fancy gear
Hmm.
to be able to be like an even better Spider-Man to try to stay in the Avengers.
Hmm.
And I guess I'm saying all this because I thought the whole point of Spider-Man in the MCU was to kind of avoid rehashing going over old steps. But now at the end of this, it was a different staircase to the same kind of landing where
Well,
now it like ended where Tobey Maguire began, it felt like. You know what I mean?
it very much did, but I think the whole purpose behind it is Spider-Man is a loner. He briefly joins the Avengers, but he doesn't stay. He briefly joins the Fantastic Four, but doesn't stay. Like he always is by himself, and because he's so worried about people getting hurt around him. And
Okay.
so, like at the end of that movie, you see him swinging away in his shitty apartment, and that's what I keep saying. I'm like, this is where he starts working at the Daily Bugle. This
Right.
is where we see that next chapter. And if he starts working at the Daily Bugle, that's how you introduce Venom.
Well, and originally it was reported that the deal with Sony was done, that part of the reason there was like this giant brainwash at the end was so that they would have a clean exit for Tom Holland's Spider-Man in case it wasn't able to be renewed. But I just read in the news within the last 2 days that Sony is saying that that's not the case, that they are planning another trilogy with Tom Holland. But I don't know if
Hmm.
that was just a statement to appease investors with Sony because everybody is super sketchy about Sony making a Spider-Man movie because the Disney and Marvel do it so well. So
Hmm.
I don't know if that what the actual reality is so far. I think I saw Tom Holland quoted as saying he wants to take a break. There should be a female Spider-Man now or something like that. So I don't know what is true for like the future of this of that character and that actor, but um, yeah, I think regardless that they did a pretty good job with like a kind of a story arc, even if it does ultimately end up in familiar territory. I want to ask you, Gunyer, besides the fan service of seeing the Spider-Mans together and seeing the old villains from the other Spider-Mans, was there anything else that stood out to you that you enjoyed? And was there anything you didn't like in the movie?
Not enough Miles Morales.
Yeah. Well, Jamie Foxx had that one line where he's like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna be black." He's like,
Yeah,
"There's got to be a black Spider-Man
yeah,
somewhere," and
somewhere.
everybody thought of Miles Morales. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was good. Honestly, like overall, like I love the whole movie. I don't think there was really a part that like stood out where it was like, this is terrible, or this is bad or cheesy. Like I really enjoyed it. Like the old dudes, and just yeah, it was great.
Well, even the parts where you're like, this is kind of cheesy, you remind yourself that these are 16, 17-year-old kids
Right.
that are
Yeah,
dealing with this crazy shit. So you almost forgive it because you're like, well, yeah, this is how like a teenage kid, would deal
yeah,
with something like that. So you're like, what would have been like weird for like Tony Stark to say, to hear it coming from Ned, you're like,
Right.
yeah, I get
yeah,
it.
yeah. Like it just worked.
Is
Mhm.
there anything, Wolf, that you didn't like as like the big Spider-Man fan and the one that probably appreciated this movie the most out of all of us? Was there
In
anything that
in
you would
all
have changed?
in all honesty, is throughout all three of these movies, I kind of missed an Uncle Ben.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because that's such an integral part. And I know that they tried to bring it in with Aunt May and stuff like that, which I appreciate. Like I don't dislike that,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that just ignoring Uncle Ben's existence was kind of odd. But no, everything about it. Like I loved like when Andrew Garfield was talking about how he quit pulling his punches.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's so scary because in the comics they say Spider-Man's one of the strongest heroes of all.
Hmm,
But he never uses his full strength because he's so scared to hurt people.
that's interesting.
So to hear, him say that I quit pulling my punches, the amount of damage that he could have done, you know, because he's almost killed Rhino on accident, which is like this crazy powerful being, in the Spider Universe. And but yeah, that was crazy. And then even like when you see Tobey Maguire, you're like, this guy's seen some shit. Like just him standing there, like and anytime he talks, you're like, he's seen some things in his years of being Spider-Man. Like there's some things that happened to this guy that I wish I knew. And
Right.
so I thought that the writing for the other characters was awesome.
Yeah, they had experienced tragedy,
Yeah.
whereas I think up until
Yeah,
that
you
point,
got some
Peter
backstory.
Parker
They
hasn't
got
really.
another chance to tell more story with those characters,
Hmm.
and it wasn't all positive. Sorry, go ahead, Gunner.
Yeah.
No, no, I don't think or little British kid.
Andrew Garfield,
No,
Tom Holland.
little
Tom
Tom
Holland.
Holland, like Tom Holland Spider-Man. I don't think up until that point, I don't think he had experienced any kind of real tragedy.
Yeah. And now he's
And
experienced the most.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
and those guys, Tobey Maguire and the other British guy, Garfield, like they have experienced, loss. And so like I thought that was cool how they kind of came together to help him out.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
when he stopped him from hitting him with that glider and said that,
Hmm.
like I've been down this path, you don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like super powerful.
I think
Like
that was powerful for the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I thought it was weak for the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Just because
mhm,
he's not I mean, again, I get it. Like from a story perspective and a character perspective, he's learning from the other Spider-Mans to be a better Spider-Man. That's the benefit of being able to do this. But it also would have been kind of rewarding for him to find it within himself and to become the hero he's meant to be without being told what to do by somebody else. So
mhm.
I feel like I have mixed feelings on it, but I completely understand why they went the route that they went.
Well, yeah, because they showed that that whole great power comes with great responsibility. That was the whole line,
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly what they were talking about. Is he could have killed him. He
Yeah.
probably
Hmm.
should have,
Yeah.
but he has to be, a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Willem Dafoe was awesome in the Raimi movie,
He's
and he
so
was
good.
awesome now. Like he was so fucking good as
He
like the innocent
stole.
feeble and like the maniacal monster.
How the hell did this guy come in fucking 15 years later and all the villains that are in this, and he still found a way to be the main villain?
Dude, I for sure thought I was
Genius.
gonna be more hyped about Doc Ock, and like
Mhm.
Willem Dafoe's Goblin is like fucking incredible.
Yeah, he became the villain of the villains. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
seriously.
I'm like, he killed it. Like, you couldn't have asked for anything better.
Um,
And he did his own stunts,
I was gonna say yeah, he
his
did
own
a lot
fight
of.
scenes.
I saw an interview with him where he said like if I come back, I want to be able to do as much as I can do because that's the fun of doing these movies is getting to be athletic and getting to do the moves yourself. So I know that he did a lot of them himself. Um,
I like that he didn't wear a mask too. I thought that was really smart. At
yeah,
first, I was kind of upset about it, but it gave him more room to act, which I
yeah.
thought was brilliant because he has such an expressive face
I want to end
that
on this
you can.
thought before we transition to the other movie. Because I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. Um, Speaking of the villains on this topic, do you feel like it maybe this movie and the MCU as a whole like has a villain problem? Did we have better villains in the past because we told complete stories that ended with a good versus bad and the villain being defeated? Or like does it not bother you at all that like I don't know, like the best maybe arguably the best villains the MCU or at least the current Spider-Man has faced has been the ones that already existed.
Uh, Actually, he has tons of villains left, and that's something that people don't realize. Like, we have this Morbius movie coming out,
Yeah.
which is a pretty huge deal because that's actually how we introduce Blade.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Blade is a vampire hunter
Of
and
course. You're
Morbius is
right.
a living vampire. That's
Right.
how we connect those worlds. And then so there's still a lot, like Morbius was a big villain, and for him to come, we still have the Scorpion, which is a big villain. We
I just
still
mean
have,
to date. I mean within the MCU so far. Obviously, the
well,
future. Who knows what the future will hold?
well, right now, like I think Marvel has always had a problem with their villains, like because you look at even just the Spider-Man movies, except for Doc Ock and the Green Goblin. Did you really give a shit about Sandman?
Right.
You know what I mean? And like, so it was kind of like whatever. But then
Mm-hmm.
you had Mysterio, who was a great villain.
I really liked
I
Jake
mean,
Gyllenhaal too. I kind of hope he comes
yeah,
back.
yeah, that was a great villain,
Yeah.
But if you even look at some of the, like, who was the villain in Guardians of the Galaxy, most people couldn't even tell you.
I
You
couldn't
know what
even.
I
I
mean?
couldn't.
Like,
Yeah.
it was Ronan. But anyways,
Ronan.
but most people, can't say that. Spider-Man's villains are so iconic. It's like Batman,
Yeah.
So I think
Specifically
that,
Spider-Man. Yeah.
yeah,
MCU overall, who cares? Spider-Man villains, I would agree, are historically
yeah,
good
top tier.
villains. Yeah.
So I think that they have a lot to offer with the villains they have now. And I do think that they ended the storyline for a lot of their villains. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
when he fixed them essentially and sent them back is, you know, he was able to take care of a lot of that stuff. So I'm curious to see what they do further. And I think it says a lot about Sam Raimi's movies that his two of his villains are still
Yes.
relevant today
And are
and
still
fantastic.
and still compelling. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. What about you, Gunnar? What say you on the villains of the MCU and relying on the past villains?
Um, kind of same, like the same point. I always loved Doc Ock and Green Goblin. Because they always showed like those people's like backstories and made them human.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of, even though they were bad guys, like you understood like why they were bad.
Right.
Why they did the things they did. Kind of like how was it Mr. Freeze over in the DC universe? Like
Hmm.
he's a bad guy, but like you totally understand
Yeah.
why he's doing what he's doing, and you kind of root for him a little bit. That's how I feel about those two guys. And I also thought some of the other villains from Spider-Man. I think because he's had such a long run in the history of comics, like yeah, he definitely does have a lot of like throwaway
Hmm.
villains, like yeah, like Sandman. Like I don't really, and Rhino, like they're bad guys, but like they're not that you know relevant, I guess.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
will say the
And
Sandman transformation sequence in Spider-Man 3 is pretty awesome. It's pretty sad. The
Oh yeah.
music and
yeah,
losing the
And he's trying to help his
ring.
daughter.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
but
yeah,
overall, like Gunyer said, is it's just not a character for some reason that you're like he turns into a big thing of sand. I don't know what about that doesn't like
Mm-hmm.
just ring
yeah,
right.
yeah. It's just not. I don't think it's too compelling.
Yeah.
Like that's his superpower. Oh, okay, sure.
But even the lizard is trying to cure humanity. He's trying to help people regrow their limbs
And
and
Thanos
things
wants
like
to kill
that.
half of us to save the other half. Like, yeah.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah, but
know.
he makes sense.
I like the selfish reasons of is it Mr. Freeze, right? Or Dr. Freeze?
Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze, yeah. I like the selfish personal reason more. It's kind of like more human. Like I'm not thinking about the globe, think about fucking me and like my
Hmm.
family and my wife. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I kind of like that
Yeah.
instead of the cure humanity thing. This I kind of feel like that goes into like Bond villain territory where it's like yeah, blah blah, blow up the world. Um yeah, I like the personal villain stories like the Doc Ock where it's
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like
Well, he was trying to give the world sustainable energy.
yeah, and it blew up in his face, and he accidentally killed his wife, which is again like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
personal thing.
And then
Um,
his arm, that little controller that's on top of it, is what keeps his mind separated from his arms fried.
yeah, I will say
Yep.
for the first half of the movie, I was worried about the Doc Ock character. I kind of thought he was like really one note and a little over the top. but when they explained and reminded you that he was under the control of the arms and he became like a completely night and day different person, it kind of justified the kind of cartoon, over the top villainry because he wasn't really being him. He was at the mercy, he was under mind control basically.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, he was like Peter's like mentor in some like comic lines and stuff like that. That was like that was his Tony Stark.
Yeah. I just want to like kind of like briefly summarize the overall thoughts of the movie and then we'll move on to the Matrix, but I thought the action sequences were really solid. I thought there was a lot of good like big gigantic set pieces with the Doctor Strange fight.
Oh, that was so good.
And yeah, when
Do you know
he
what's cooler than geometry? Or do you know what was it? Do you know what's cooler?
then magic,
Why did he? Yeah,
geometry,
what's cooler than magic?
Yeah.
Math.
yeah,
Yeah.
using his scientific skills and
Mhm.
yeah, just the hand-to-hand combat, like the big finale at the end. Like I got to tell you, I mean, Gunnar, you talked about getting emotional when in the Aunt May death sequence, which was a strong sequence, and I'm not a very big Tom Holland fan, but I thought he did really fantastic in that scene.
Yeah.
The part, two parts got me emotional in this movie, where I was like, oh my god, this is having an effect on me. Number one was hearing the original Danny Elfman score when Tobey Maguire revealed himself to Tom Holland. Not in that way, giggity. Um, but like yeah, when the original score from the movie 20 years ago, that's still such a really strong film score. I've complained about this before. Modern Hollywood movies do not care about music anymore. There's no like specific hero's theme. We don't have Danny Elfman's Batman. We don't have Danny Elfman's Spider-Man. We have jack shit horns loud. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing memorable. We don't have Jurassic Park. We don't have Back to the Future. We don't have, it's just music for music's sake. Like even good Hans Zimmer music lately, like the music in Blade or the music in Dune, I don't remember any melodies from it. It just sounded like digital. But uh, what was I gonna say? Oh, so that part got to me, and then the other part that got to me was seeing all the Spider-Mans jump off at the same time and start swinging together
Yeah.
because it's just like three good guys trying to do the right thing, putting themselves in harm's way. Let's go be superheroes. It just gives you like a childlike wonder. You know what I mean? Like it was really really well done.
Do you know
Um,
what though? You'd realize that like when you see you didn't watch the movies right or didn't see like Amazing Spider-Man 2, every time you saw Electro, he had like a weird dubstep music, and they actually brought that into this movie as well.
oh,
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
every
cool.
time he used his powers, and it was really faint, but if you paid attention to it, you can hear the original music
Well, I mean,
from
That's
that
cool.
movie.
that movie's 7 years old, so it predates my 5-year assumption. So I'm still
Yeah,
okay.
it's true.
So yeah, overall, a great movie. Interesting storyline, fun conclusion to this trilogy of Spider-Man movies. Cool, I would say integral part of the larger MCU never-ending story, and really fun and entertaining to see the Spider-Man back, not just from a nostalgia perspective of here's what you remember, bye, but they were like in a full third of the movie with character backstory and contributions, and they were integral to the plot, and the action was like pretty well done, which is usually can't say that sometimes for a Marvel movie. There's a lot of green screen in these movies, but you didn't really feel it in this one. So overall, not a lot of negative things to say about this movie. I did think that the middle was a little bit slow, and when it is just the kids, I got a little bit bored because I'm not diehard into it. So if I had to give it a rating, I'd say like 8.5 or 9 out of 10. But yeah, so those are our thoughts on Spider-Man: No Way Home. Did you know if you support me on patreon.com/superjersh that you can get this podcast early and ad-free? You probably didn't know that because you're listening to this promotion right now, which means you also probably didn't know that there are dozens of hours of Patreon exclusive content over there, like full album music reactions and full movie watch-along commentaries. So head on over to patreon.com/superjersh to help the music and movie discussions continue. if you skipped ahead to the Matrix Resurrections review and discussion, just a reminder, this is a full spoiler warning for the Matrix Resurrections. The movie has been out for a few weeks now in movie theaters and on HBO Max, so we're not going to worry about not spoiling anything. I want to remind people here, if you did jump to this spot, I traditionally try to avoid movie and streaming show trailers. So I, for the last year and a half of my life, did everything I could to avoid the Matrix Resurrections. I watched no trailers. I saw, I would say, less than 3 seconds of moving image. Even when I went to other movies, I covered my eyes and wore a Bluetooth and didn't see, even if it was just a promotional, like a cell phone commercial. I don't know what it was, but I saw less than 3 seconds of moving visual images from this movie before I actually saw the movie. No trailers, 2 still images. I had seen almost nothing. So let's set the stage for Wolf and Gunyer. Wolf, did you watch all of the trailers, or did you just kind of wait and see what the movie was going to be like?
I'm not as big of a diehard as you are, so I definitely watched like the first trailer, but that was it.
Okay, first trailer. And you, Gunyer?
I watched 2 trailers.
Both of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Something else that I'm going to be doing on this show going forward for people who listen or who watch on YouTube is when I do a review of a movie on the No Trailers Allowed podcast, I'm actually going to show my live reactions to the trailers after having seen the movie, so I can let you know how much I think it spoils, which 9 times out of 10 is going to be too much. um,
Mhm.
so I already have a slight inkling on what Wolf is gonna feel about this movie, just because of a comment he made while we were playing Fortnite. Um, but I still want to know what your overall thoughts are on this movie, and kind of get into the details of it. Oh wait, first, what is your relationship and experience with the Matrix as a whole? The first movie, the trilogy. How much do you like the original Matrix movies, Wolf?
So I saw the first one. I think I saw it on VHS. Like it was old,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember watching it, and me and my friend, it just blew our minds. And then
When
I
you
can't
saw
remember
the
was it
first
like
one, had you ever heard anything about it or knew anything
no,
about it?
no, nothing, nothing. I was a kid, you know what I mean? There was
Yep.
nothing. So it was just incredible, you know. But I remember it just blew my. I think we watched it like 2 more times right after that.
Yeah.
Like oh, let's go again, like a
Yep.
roller coaster, you know.
Mhm.
And then what was it like a couple of years later the sequel came out?
4 years later, 2003.
Yeah, me and a different group of friends, we ran to the theater at the midnight release. We had a friend who worked at the theater who got us tickets because they kept selling out, and we did that for the second two movies.
Nice.
And I know that like a lot of people hated on the other two. I enjoyed the whole trilogy. Like I don't think they were great, like the second two,
Mm-hmm.
but to continue that story from the first, I think I just rode on the high of the first one through all three of those movies.
That's fair. Okay.
But yeah,
And go ahead.
but yeah, no, that's yeah, that's what I mean, we
His
ran to the
experience.
theater.
Okay. So you saw both of the Reloaded and Revolutions at the midnight showing, and you're not as low on them as other people are, even though you
No,
realize that they're not as good as the first movie.
yeah, you know me. I like bad movies.
Well, I know you'll watch anything. I want to know
Yeah,
what you if you liked it though.
yeah, no, and that's the thing is I genuinely liked them. And
Right.
and and I like when people would complain about them, they were valid, but it didn't take away from the fact that I enjoyed it. It was still a
Right.
good time.
What say you, Gun? Your original Matrix experience and the original trilogy.
I saw the original Matrix in the movie theater. Um, I don't I don't remember seeing any trailers for it, but I
Mm-hmm.
remember my cousin really, really wanted to go watch it, and he was like, "Dude, let's go." And I don't remember what year did that come out?
99.
99? Yeah, so I was in high school, and I remember we went to this movie theater, and I was just like, "What am I watching? I had never seen anything like this. This is insane." Like, I was blown away, completely blown away. So much so that, like, when we left the theater, we didn't actually leave the the building, and we snuck back in and watched it again.
Damn.
Like, yeah, it was amazing. And the other two, I think I saw them with you, I believe.
The
Um,
third one, not the
or
second
the
one.
third one. Yeah, the third one. I saw all of them in the theater. I didn't really care for the second or third one. I mean, they're super action and you know great visuals, things like that. But
Hmm.
it didn't hit me the way the first one did.
Mhm.
Okay.
The first one was just incredible. Second, third one, I think by that time, like, more movies had come along and kind of replicated that style and just pushed the envelope even more. So when those other two movies came out, it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, there's a bunch of movies that are doing this kind of thing now, so it's not so groundbreaking anymore.
Right. My experience is really similar to Wolf's with the first Matrix. I did not hear anything about it. I didn't know it. I barely knew it existed. Obviously, when I was a kid, early days of the internet, I did what I could to try to keep up on movie news because I was obsessed with movies. So I would get a our local video rental store had like a movie like magazine that would come out once a month. It would show you all the movies like coming to home video, and I would get that all the time, and I would reread it over and over, and I would like memorize like video titles and descriptions and run times and release dates, and any movie that I wanted to see, I'd always like make sure to keep track so that the day it was available, I'd go try to get it the second that I could. Like I loved movies. And uh for some reason for the Matrix, I just wasn't. I like had heard the name in my memory, but I wasn't. I didn't know what it was. I'd never seen a trailer or commercial. And like one day I came home from school, and oh, I remember. So in the summer of '99, we took a family vacation to Missouri to go to an amusement park, I think, and we saw a movie in the summer of '99, and two movies that were playing. I saw the poster. That's what I saw. We could see The Matrix, or we could see Godzilla. And we nobody knew what the Matrix was, but we knew what fucking Godzilla was. So we saw Godzilla instead of the Matrix in theaters.
Oh my gosh, the
Okay.
Matthew Broderick one.
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
To talk about film life regrets. Okay. Um, and that movie was fine.
No, it wasn't.
For a kid wanting to see a big monster movie, but yeah, otherwise in hindsight, that movie has nothing to offer. The Matrix being a legitimate masterpiece and one of the best movies ever made. I never saw that in theaters. So anyway, uh, one day I come home from school and my mom's like, "Hey, that Matrix movie that we didn't see came out, so I rented it." I go, "Oh yeah, like did you already watch it?" She goes, "Uh-huh." And I go, "Oh, well, was it good?" She's like, "You're gonna really like it. You should probably watch it right now." And so I did. And I was like one day after school, I was like, okay, let's watch this 2 hour movie. I don't give a shit. I was gonna watch a movie anyway. And same thing with you guys, like mind was blown. The action was insane, the story was insane, the concept, the I would say philosophy light ideas were insane, where it's like it wasn't the mumbo jumbo that it became in the sequels. It was like very palatable, big ideas for a mass audience, kind of like what Christopher Nolan is able to do today for the most part. Tenet is not that. Tenet is too wordy. I'd say more along the lines of like Inception. Um, and yeah, I loved it. I mean, I watched that movie over and over and over and over and over, and I made people watch it. And the sequels, same thing with you, Wolf. Went to the midnight for two, at the time was disappointed in it, but in hindsight, I really like Reloaded. I rewatched the action scenes a lot. I rewatch Reloaded a lot. There's only about 20 or 30 minutes of that movie that I will legit skip through now just because I know what happens and it's not particularly engaging. But the action set pieces of like the Burly Bra and the highway chase, which is like 45 minutes of nonstop action straight, it's just like it's fucking incredible. It's like kind of like Mad. It's like a version of Mad Max. You know what I mean? Like it just was like nonstop action. Um, the chateau fight, like Reloaded is so good. Revolutions, I was pretty high on when I first saw it, just because I loved the world, I loved the character of Neo, and I was really hyped to see how it finished. I actually saw Revolutions twice in one day, the day it came out. First in the morning, and then later after school with Gunyar. Um, and yeah, I think Revolutions definitely is the weakest of them. And also for both of those movies, I absolutely watched the trailers. Like I saw nothing for the first Matrix. I probably rewatched the trailers for the sequels like 20 times. You know what I mean? Like, couldn't get enough. But yeah, I think the sequels, they kind of lost the plot and the magic. The magic of the first movie, in my opinion, before we finally talk about Resurrections here, is that it's really Keanu Reeves, the 110 pounds Hollywood actor, doing fucking kung fu in front of you on screen.
No kung fu.
Like, well, it's like the magic of it was seeing the actors do it. You believe that they plugged into a computer program and learned it. A second ago, I was just leaning against the wall having a cigarette. Now I'm doing kung fu running up a wall, and you can see that it's me. I'm doing it. And so in the sequels, when they leaned more into the CGI and they got away from the real, the real human fights, that's when it got less interesting. Like any movie franchise can make a computer do something cool. Not every movie franchise can have the main actor learn what the character has to learn and believably perform it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like Ryan Gosling playing piano in La La Land. It's like incredible to see because he actually learned it. It's like he like learned a masterclass song on piano and they show it all in one take and it's really him playing. Like, that's Keanu Reeves doing kung fu in The Matrix to me. It's like, holy shit, you're really doing it. Anyway, I want to get to Matrix Resurrections. I don't want to take up I don't want to make this longer than it needs to be. Wolf, what did you think of this movie?
Top 3 worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life, and I mean that 100%. I hated this movie.
Oh my god! Wait, how did you
So
watch
much.
it? Theaters or HBO Max?
HBO Max.
Okay.
Because unlike you guys, I was pretty skeptical about it. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm like, I'm not going to the theater for this. I'll watch it for free at home. And
Okay.
yeah, top 3 worst movies. It is a little bit behind Seed of Chucky for me.
All right. Well, I will pick your brain and get into those details about what you specifically hated about it in a little bit. But Gunyar, I'm very curious where you're at with this one.
Um,
He's speechless.
I I thought it was a pretty weak movie
Okay.
in terms of the Matrix. I would say I was disappointed. Um, it just reminded me of like the new Star Wars movies, so they just remade the old movie. I kind of felt the same way. Like it's just the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
reawakening. I was a little disappointed. I wanted more from it. Um, yeah, again, like with the sequels, like wasn't blown away by any of the visuals anymore. They didn't do anything that I felt was groundbreaking. So like, as far as like the first Matrix, like that was like 80% of the movie, right? Like, oh my gosh, like this looks amazing. And then
Yeah.
a little bit of the story. Well, this like doesn't have those visuals anymore. So like, what can you do with the story? Not much. So it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I was pretty disappointed.
Okay. It
And I
should.
saw it in the theater.
That was my next question. Was theater or HBO Max?
Yeah, I saw it in the theater. I mean, the sound editing's great.
All
There's
right.
your one positive.
Okay. Well, it should be an interesting discussion then because I fucking love this movie. I love it.
Are you? Oh my god.
I
Let's
loved
go.
this movie. Okay. I loved basically every minute of it. Now I agree in terms of action and in terms of expectations for what a Matrix movie can do from action, it's a disappointment. And I think
Mhm.
if I had to guess, the Wachowskis originally, Lana and Lily directed the first trilogy, wrote and directed the first trilogy together. This one was just one of the Wachowskis on their own. And if I had to guess, they're probably the Wachowski that leaned into the idea side of the Matrix and was not as keen on action and anime and stuff as the other Wachowski was, right? So that's probably where that absence is felt. Um, but otherwise, I loved this movie. I went to the first showing on opening night at 10:40 at night with my sister and my mom, who they both were on trailer blackout. They both also avoided all trailers for this movie, and we all loved it. We all loved it. And I genuinely think that like this is a really specific and important example of giving away too much in trailers. Because I watched the trailers after the movie. That's like the first thing I did because I had to stop myself from watching it for a year. You know what I mean? So I'm like, what did they fucking tell people? Because that was nothing like I thought it was going to be. Nothing like I thought it was going to be. What the hell what did they sell to people? And they basically gave away the entire reason to watch this movie. Like, I showed my sister the trailer. She goes, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, they showed you all of this in the trailer. They showed you that Groff is Smith, that Trinity is in the coffee shop, that the Matrix that the Matrix as a franchise exists within Matrix Resurrections, that they're fucking, you know what I mean? Like, all of this, all of the fun. Because I can't, 3 times within the first 30 minutes of this movie, I looked over at them and I said, what the fuck are we watching? What the fuck is happening? What is happening right now? They are literally the writer, the co-writer and director of one of the most important films ever made, has had a lifetime, has had decades to deal with and like live a life being one of the writer and directors of one of the most important films ever made. And they took this opportunity to make the latest installment in the franchise to take issue with franchises, not just the Matrix franchise, but all franchises, to talk about creativity, the monotony of life, how people used to want to wake up for the Matrix, and now all we want to do is be in the Matrix, and that's all we want to fucking do is be in. And it could have been so easy. Like, yes, there's like a 3-second scene of everybody in the elevator is on their smartphones and Neo isn't. Like, that could have been the whole movie. Like, dude, get on social, get on smartphone. That was like a 3-second idea. There's like 30 or 40 ideas in this movie to think about and examine in real life, in filmmaking, in storytelling, how loss affects us. Like, there is so much fun in this movie, but if I honestly believe that if you saw the trailer, you probably should hate this movie. Because all of the fun for me as a viewer was finding out what the movie was going to be. You know what I mean? Because then, like, the first half of the movie is undoubtedly the best part of the movie, in my opinion. And I'll come back to finding out specifically if anything that I say, if you agree with or disagree with. But the first half of the movie, I thought was brilliant. Like, I honestly wish they leaned into it even harder and went full Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I wish Keanu Reeves played himself, an actor who made a movie about the Matrix, who finds out the Matrix is real, and now the machines are unplugging people because we are aware of the Matrix and they have to start over. Right?
You think that would be better?
100%. Like, only because this concept was introduced. I'm saying they should have gone all the way with it. Because halfway through the movie, they pull back and then just do Force Awakens. You know what I mean? Like I agree with you that it is inconsistent because on one hand, I absolutely love the ideas of this movie. I love the concepts, everything. But at the same token, like, you know, when you hear the phrase Matrix, an expectation does exist for a certain amount of action, you know, and a certain quality of action. The fact that Keanu Reeves doesn't hold a gun and that all he does is force push is a waste of his talent. The John Wick movies, I just watched the 3rd John Wick movie within the last 5 days. Like, the John Wick movies are fucking incredible action movies. To this day, it's probably a more consistent action franchise than The Matrix. Because it's real world action, it's convincing action, and it's entertaining as shit to watch. And it also, the director of the John Wick films is Keanu Reeves' stunt double from the Matrix trilogy. So they've been like friends for 20 years. And they were like, let's go do another action movie together. That's what kicked off the John Wick series. Mm-hmm. But I loved this concept of people finding comfort in what makes them feel good instead of what is actually factual. Literally like taking the piss out of Warner Brothers and like basically saying, Warner Brothers wants a Matrix 4, they're gonna do it without you. And so for her to come back and say, fine, I guess you're doing it with me. And everybody's going to know what a piece of shit, what I think of the film industry these days, where everything is a cash grab and nothing is about actual creativity. Like, I really feel like the director and co-writer, Lana Wachowski, like, I feel like she put so much like truth into this movie of like what it's like to be the director of one of the biggest movies ever made. And I get it, general audiences probably won't like it. But in 5 to 10 years, I think you're gonna remember the original Matrix and you're gonna remember this one more than the sequels because of it. It challenged the status quo and it challenged what you expect of a franchise movie. Now I agree when they spun to we're waking him up again and we're doing Matrix again and there's gonna be action again, then that needed to be fucking balls to the wall, the coolest shit you've ever seen in your life because we've had 20 years late, to work on this stuff. But yeah, besides the action being disappointing, but I still liked the end sequence of the swarm being taken over and like diving out of buildings to try to stop them, and like the stunt they did at the end, they really jumped off that building. They like wore wires and jumped off of a 45-story building 20 times. And there's no CG there except to remove the wires. It's crazy. Anyway, Wolf, let me come back around to you. What did you not like and what do you think of my comments?
The characters were terrible. The way they looked was terrible. They tried to recreate the 90s and did a piss poor job.
Okay.
The acting was bad from all the characters. I think the guy who tried to redo Agent Smith it was awful.
See,
And the fact that he kept calling him Tom instead of Mr.
Mr.
Anderson, I'm
Anderson.
like, that's just dumb. That's just dumb. That's bad. The guy who played Morpheus, awful. I don't know why. I don't know why they tried to like, let's do young hip version. Shut up. Terrible.
Well,
Just stop it.
yeah, I mean, well,
If if you if you weren't going to use the people, then don't do it. And
okay.
I understand they tried to work all it felt to me was the story was a workaround to explain to why they weren't there. That's what if the
Yeah.
whole
Do
movie
you
felt like to
feel
me.
do you feel
It's like
like
we couldn't get these characters, so we're gonna make a movie and we're gonna spend the whole movie explaining why we couldn't get these actors.
do you feel
We're gonna
like
And
make
here
we're
you
gonna make
go.
them some liquid little element robot
Yeah.
like Morpheus.
I liked the expansion of the lore, how the Neo sacrifice actually mattered. Nothing in the past Star Wars movie fucking matters after Force Awakens. When you get to Force
But he
Awakens,
was blind.
they fixed
He
him.
was like his eyes were it's dumb.
Yeah, yeah, he was blind. Also,
Well, hang on.
look,
I want to ask Wolf.
I,
Do you think it's possible that somebody feels that way? That it's silly to bring in a younger, more flamboyant face because you couldn't get the original actor? Do you think people feel that way about Tom Holland and Tobey Maguire?
Well, obviously not, because look what happened.
What I'm
There he
saying,
is.
what I'm saying is that character exists to be a commentary, to literally be a commentary on new franchises trying to use hip younger faces recreating the old, and it's stupid.
Well,
That's why that
so
is like that.
Spider-Man they were subject to the studios, right? Marvel and Sony battling it out,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, Spider-Man 3 doing piss poor, you know,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how it got recast and then recast. But you look at the Batman movies, Batman got recast, but
Right.
those were
And
all
this
separate stories. This was a continuation of a story
mhm,
with just a totally different cast. So I think, you take the first three Spider-Man movies, that's a story, right?
mm-hmm.
The next two Spider-Man movies, that's its own story, right? And then this third movie, or then the next three, they have fun and tie in the other movies. That's interesting. This was a continuation of a story, and they completely bastardized it to me.
It's a fair point. I
They
mean,
actually,
I don't disagree with your perspective. I just think
I
yeah.
think that this movie actually made the original trilogy worse.
Hmm.
I like the other three movies less because this exists.
Well, and that's a fair
Because it
point because
demeans everything that happened.
right, because yeah, it makes it basically undermines the original idea and tries to say that franchise filmmaking is dumb, and it takes you out of the world. It takes you
Hmm.
out of the world of the movie. You know,
It cheapens it.
sure.
Yeah. I feel like if I sat down and watched the trilogy now, that I would enjoy it less, knowing what I know about this one.
Hmm.
I think they actually did damage, not just
Interesting.
by making a bad movie, but by ruining characters.
But my
Like Keanu Reeves at no point in time acted like Neo. He acted like Keanu Reeves. He was just Keanu Reeves in a Matrix movie.
Hmm. I
yeah,
agree.
I felt like when he
That
was
that
in the Matrix, he actually did some acting, like his scenes with Neil Patrick Harris when they're in the psychiatrist room, and his interactions with Trinity while they were in the Matrix and she was Tiffany. I actually really liked. I thought that there was some actual performance and chemistry there. But I agree. Once he goes back into the Matrix and is in Neo mode, it's very there's not. Yeah, they didn't do a lot with him.
he didn't even act like Neo. He just acted like Keanu Reeves with a shaved head. You know what I mean? Like they did nothing with his character. Nothing. None
Yeah,
of it. And then
Agree.
them trying to
I feel like
recreate
I feel like it was on
Dojo's
purpose
scene
though. Yeah,
was just piss poor.
but that was the kind of the point. And they didn't recreate it all the way. They like blew it up. But Gunnar, I want to come back to you. What did you think about the thoughts that I had said? And obviously you guys are both in the same boat. Um, but what did you think about what I had said about the themes of the movie and the fun of the movie being like unraveling what it is even about?
Uh, Disagree with everything you said. No, I get what you're saying. I do. It just doesn't hit the same way for me. I I'm definitely on on Wolf's side on this one. I just the way it all came together, and just I mean when like half your movie is like shots of like the old movies,
Mm-hmm.
like then obviously you have like nothing to stand on. Like it shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't have to reference your old movie like at every step of the way.
Yeah. You're
You
admitting your
know.
movie's bad by
Yeah,
referencing your
exactly. It's like
old movies.
But
yeah,
what I'm saying is the movie, this
it's okay.
franchise
You don't have
movie,
to defend them.
I mean, I'm not defending it. I'm not people. If you like it or you don't like it, I'm trying to.
They don't.
Everything that you're saying is playing into why the movie is fantastic.
In your opinion.
Yes, because
I
the movie is a commentary on all of those things. It's doing the things that piss you off because it pisses off the Wachowskis too. They're like, fine, Warner Brothers, you want another Matrix? Here's a shit ton of original Matrix footage. That's what
But
people
for
want,
Okay,
me,
right?
but that doesn't make it a good movie though.
yeah, by trying to make some
Yeah.
bullshit statement doesn't make a good movie.
I
And
felt
he
like,
tried.
right, but the reason that I felt like it was is because it felt like a real personal movie. It felt like something that was like people aren't going to like this, but this is actually how I feel and this is the story that I want to tell. And I feel
Okay.
like there would be a lot of people that would be afraid to do that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
I could see that, but like that I'm talking about a movie standing on its own legs, not somebody's personal like a crusade, I guess, to tell like, oh, to get back at the studio. Like if that's what they wanted to do, sure, they succeeded, but like as a movie, beginning, middle, and end, this was not a good movie.
mhm.
Mm.
Aside
Well,
from being, like if it wasn't part of like, the Matrix, like it's just a bad movie, like on its own legs and its own merit. It's a bad movie. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was good. Old Neo when he looks in the mirror, looks looks like a like an
See, and
old
for
dumpy
me,
sailor.
like that was awesome because I didn't see that beforehand in the trailer. Like I was like, "Oh my god, what's that reflection? Holy shit, he doesn't look like him. What's going on?" Like I was like enthralled and engaged in that because I was trying to put together the mystery of the movie. Cuz I had
well,
Yeah.
no I remember
I
like right before the movie started, I looked over at them and I go, "Can you believe we're getting ready to watch a brand new Matrix movie and we have no fucking idea what it's about?" We have no clue. Like it
Yeah,
could literally be about anything.
I
I
mean,
gen I
and it
genuinely
is.
yeah. I genuinely believe the whole movie was her way of flipping off the studio, and in return just flipped us all off as people who enjoyed her movies.
who cared about the movies and the franchise.
Well, here's what I also
Just 'cause
think.
she doesn't care doesn't mean that we didn't.
I think
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like Michelangelo pissing on one of his paintings. You know
no,
what I
that's
mean?
not what it is at all. That's not what it is at all. It is Michelangelo saying, you can like my old painting and have reference for it, but ask me to fucking paint something new. Ask me to paint something new. Like, stop making me paint the same painting. That is what I want to piss on. You wanting me to do the same things.
Well, I
Like,
think
love the
his
original, but let
Okay,
me, you know.
but the fans and the people who made it what it was, they're not forcing you to make a new painting.
yeah, nobody asked for
The
this.
person who cuts your check is telling you to make a new painting.
Mhm.
Be mad at them. Don't be mad at us.
Right.
Mhm.
You
We
know,
got
like
handed a plate of shit because she was pissed off at the studio for asking her to make another
yeah.
gourmet meal.
You got
know,
handed
And let's
an
let's
introspective and sincere commentary on life as you know it and the entertainment industry as a whole. And in 5 to 10 years, this movie is
Nobody's
going to be
gonna care.
appreciated. Oh,
they're gonna be laughing even more at Jada Pinkett Smith being old
That was bad.
the makeup was
with bad
rough,
makeup,
but
bad makeup, bad acting, bad.
Do you know
Just
what though? Do you know what
terror
this movie
bad.
did do really well?
what?
Is it made me appreciate the second and third movie a little bit more. Do you know it turns out they weren't that bad?
I mean, the
Compared to
action
this, those ones were
sequences in
great.
Reloaded still hold up for the most part. You know what I mean? Like,
I thought you were gonna say action sequence in this movie. I'm like, name one.
no, the action in this movie is almost non-existent. Like I said, I wish they wouldn't have even done any action. Like, if this is what we're doing, if we're saying fuck you to studios and we're saying general audiences free your mind and ask for more out of your entertainment, then do that. Ask for more. Don't have an action sequence because the action sequences that are here are not worth having. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, and see, you and Gunyar, you are definitely more into like the actual filmmaking aspect
yeah,
Mhm.
of it. I'm just a viewer, right?
right.
And what it felt, I completely understood the movie. I understood what she was trying to do, and I'm like, yeah, I get that. Why are you flipping me off too?
Mm.
It's like I felt like an innocent bystander. You know what I mean? I'm getting
Why are
hit with
mom and dad
shrapnel.
fighting? I'm just trying to
Yeah,
watch the
Yeah,
cartoon.
exactly.
I'm getting hit with shrapnel because these two assholes are fighting with each other.
Yeah.
I sit down like I'm gonna get to enjoy another Matrix movie. No, and remember what I said? I like bad movies.
Yeah.
I can find enjoyment out of movies that most people don't like. I can shut my brain off and be like, "What? That was a fun ride." You know, a bad roller coaster is still a fun time, you know? So and
Yeah,
I'm just sitting here and I'm like, "Oh, so fuck me, right? Oh, I'm an idiot.
yeah,
You're just telling me I'm dumb, they're dumb, and you're the dumb one who made the movie. So I think ultimately you're the actual idiot."
I
yeah.
do
It's
think,
just
yeah,
I think she rather destroy her creation than to let somebody else do a better job.
oh, I
And that's
definitely
what it felt
think,
like.
I mean, I definitely think that, I don't think, I don't think anything in this movie happened on accident. You know what I mean? I don't think the action's bad on accident. It's not an accident that Neo doesn't wield a gun. You think about that. He's fucking Neo, right? Keanu Reeves has 20 years of professional arms marksmanship experience due in no small part to the fucking John Wick franchise, which is incredible. Okay? So that's a conscious choice. And it's totally understandable to be upset about the choice. I'm even upset about the choice. I had the same expectations that you all had as this is the fourth Matrix. He has John Wick training. This is going to be probably the best Matrix movie ever made. It might even be better than the first one because they have 20 years, they have decades of experience and thought and progress and technology and training, and Keanu Reeves is like even more in tune with his training than he probably was then. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
I'm completely on board with the camp of, the action was bad. It's a disappointing action movie. But for the other things that the Matrix is good for, which is, you know, self contemplation, questioning your reality, what you want out of life, and kind of what we want in our lives and what we want out of entertainment. I thought it was really smart and really fun, and the trailers just gave away too much. And I got to tell you, I probably watched about a dozen trailer reactions after the fact, and almost every single trailer reaction that I watched, everybody loved the trailers. I thought the trailers were great too, by the way. Like they gave away
I
too
did too.
much, but I thought the trailers were fucking awesome. Like I loved the trailers. The music, the White Rabbit song in the first one, and then remixing "Wake Up" in the second trailer. I was like, oh my god, these trailers are fucking incredible. The problem is they give away too much, and I love
Problem's the
Jonathan
movie.
Groff. Huh?
The problem's the movie.
The problem's not
The trailers were great. The movie was the problem.
Trinity.
Dude,
Trinity.
I mean, yeah.
That was
Speaking
the
of
whole movie.
speaking of emotional response, like when she finally woke up and yelled Neo, and that's like the first time you've heard her say his name in like 20 years or whatever. That hit me. I was like, oh my god, she's back. And yeah, but yeah, it's not.
And now she's Neo.
They're not again. Okay, I have to go. But the last thing I'm going to say is she's not Neo. This is a new Matrix that is predicated on their bond, on their love, because this is again trying to be a love story. Is it successful? Maybe not, but that's what it's
No.
trying to be.
There's no maybe. It's bad. Real bad. Super bad. I would say 0 out of 10. If I could go negative, I absolutely would.
He's
Go
not.
see Seed of Chucky.
He's not
That's
the
better.
one. This is a different Matrix, and it exists on their relationship, their co-power, which is why they are near each other and just out of each other's reach. Which again, the Neil Patrick Harris character says, this is how everybody wants to live their lives. Always be dreaming about what you want and always chasing it, but don't ever achieve it. That way, you're never truly fulfilled and you're outputting a bunch of energy. And that's how so many people live their lives. And I personally identify with that because I feel like I've taken a lot more risks in like my professional life than a lot of people have had the guts to do. So even if I fail, I'm glad that I did it. And I kind of identified with that. Like Neo, Keanu Reeves, has a moment when he's talking to Trinity at the car repair when they go back into the Matrix, and he's like, I thought that I was done with all of this, and it turns out that I just needed I can't remember the exact line, but he's like, I forgot how much I cared about you, and it made me want to try harder to get back to you. And like that's what I feel like in my personal life as like a creative person trying to do things creatively professionally. Is like, like I don't know. I identified with that. I identified with the concepts. I agree the execution wasn't that great, but I genuinely did love this movie. I've rewatched it twice. So I've seen it 3 times.
Canceled my HBO subscription.
I thought about watching
Twice.
it. I thought about watching it one more time before we did this because I'm like, I was really mad. And I'm like, maybe if I watch again, I could appreciate it more. And I'm like, nah, I get it. I don't like it. It's bad. It's a bad movie. I think it was lazy. I think the characters were lazy. Dude, the actors looked like they were bored out of their fucking mind. The actors didn't even want to be there. Keanu Reeves looked like he was reading scripts for the next movie on set. Like, get me out of here.
That is going to do it for this episode of No Trailers Allowed. Thank you, Wolf and Gunyer, my special guests, for sharing your honest opinions about this movie. And it made for a really fun conversation, and it was fun to hear the reasons why the movie did not land with you and to share the reasons why it did with me. Let me know if you listened to this or if you watched this on YouTube what you thought of Spider-Man No Way Home and The Matrix Resurrections. The email address is notrailersallowed@gmail.com. If you like this podcast, you can find more episodes on my website, superjersh.com. Also available on Spotify and iTunes. We do have a YouTube. The link is in the description of the show notes. Please subscribe if you like it so that we can make a vanity URL for this channel as well. And looking forward to do a lot more movies and streaming shows discussions on this podcast as long as people are interested without watching the trailers. And I'll always explain, what I happen to know ahead of time, just like I did for these movies. As always, thank you for watching or listening. Until next time.